Former Uvalde CISD Police Chief Pete Arredondo has been indicted for failing to help kids who survived the Robb Elementary shooting.
A grand jury indicted Arredondo and former district officer Adrian Gonzalez yesterday, and Arredondo was released from jail yesterday as well after posting his bond.
Daniela Ibarra is live in Uvalde this morning for KSAT, where she just received the court documents. Daniela, what do they say so far? I know it's quite a bit to digest.
Yeah, Mark, it is 30 pages, and I just got it in the past hour, so I want us to go through it together. So one of the lines on the front page, it says that Arredondo is accused of intentionally, knowingly, recklessly, and with criminal negligence placing some of the kids that survived in Robb in imminent danger of bodily injury, death, and physical impairment and mental impairment. Now, there's 10 points that they go through in this indictment, and it's really copied and pasted per charge. So the first one is that after hearing shots being fired at Robb Elementary, Arredondo failed to identify the incident as an active shooter incident. And despite hearing those shots fired, and despite knowing that teachers had been shot, failing to identify the incident as an active shooter incident, and despite knowing kids had been shot, failing to identify the incident as an active shooter. And it also goes on to mention that he didn't check the doors, that he didn't do enough to try and stop the shooter. It says that he attempted to negotiate with the shooter. So a lot to go through in this document right here. But Arredondo, just to give you some background, he was the chief of police for the Uvalde CISD back when the shooting happened. He's been criticized for how he's handled the shooting. He was fired 3 months after, and he defends his actions. 19 kids and 2 teachers died that day at Robb Elementary. Several others were hurt. And these charges focus on the 10 surviving kids. The court records say Arredondo did not voluntarily deliver the kids to a designated emergency infant care provider. Now, we talked with Brett Cross in the past hour. He's the guardian of Uzziah Garcia. He says he found out about the indictments yesterday on Twitter. Cross has been calling for accountability since the shooting happened.
I think it's a good start. I think that Pete and Adrian definitely, they should be indicted. They should face charges. But they're only 2 out of 376. There's not going to be full justice for our kids until more are indicted and more are charged and more are found guilty, because we've all seen the videos.
As for the other officer indicted in this case, according to the Uvalde Leader News, Adrian Gonzalez, what we called the jail just about 20 minutes ago, they said he hadn't been booked yet. Cross says that he and the other families of the victims of Robb, they're going to meet with Uvalde County District Attorney Christina Mitchell later today to talk about how to move forward. And he says the big question he has is, will more officers be charged? And of course, we're going to be in Uvalde all day covering this for you, so make sure to stay tuned both on air and online. In Uvalde, Daniela Ibarra, KSAT 12 News.
Daniela, I had a quick question for you there. I know, well, that is a loud engine. I know these indictments are pretty fresh. Do you get any indication from people there in Uvalde, after years of thinking that the DA had kind of sat on her hands, is there any sense of relief so far that the case is finally moving forward?
We talked with Jesse Rizzo, whose niece died in the shooting, and yesterday he mentioned that he was glad that there's a start to accountability, but they're still frustrated. And you heard Brett talk about it. They're still frustrated that it's just 2 officers instead of the 200 plus that were at Robb that day.
All right, accountability continues, or the search for accountability. Daniela Ibarra, live in Uvalde for KSAT. Thank you so much. Welcome back to GMSA at 9. All morning we've been talking about the indictments of former Uvalde School District Police Chief Pete Arredondo and former UCISD officer Adrian Gonzalez.
In January, we spoke with criminal law attorney Brent De La Paz when the DOJ's report came out about the Robb Elementary shooting. So we wanted to speak with him again now that the indictments have been issued. Good morning, Brent.
Good morning.
Brent, walk us through what happens now.
Now the process or the timeline for trial, plea negotiations, all the general things, this timeline starts. What defenses they may have will come about with hiring the defense attorney, speaking to the prosecutor that's handling the case. So it'll be a lot of hurry up and wait, unfortunately. It's not going to be a quick process, but at least the charges have come about. As we talked about previously, the reports have already been poured over a grand jury. So the grand jury is the people of that community. They've heard from law enforcement, they've heard from all the different agencies, they've heard from witnesses, and it was their decision to bring forth, the community's decision to bring forth these charges. So now it's, how will they be resolved? Will there be some plea negotiations? Will there be some plea bargaining? Will there be some agreement as to what should happen, or will it go to trial? Again, if it goes to trial, it'll be back in the citizens' hands.
Well, Brent, in January, you had talked about how the DOJ report could help make a case for felony charges versus misdemeanor charges, and it's our understanding that these indictments are felony charges. Is that correct?
That is my understanding regarding the omission of these two officers that were charged, and we can talk a little bit more about that. But right now, this is what the community has said. They would like to proceed forward with these two particular charges, these two particular officers.
Are you surprised about the types of charges involved in this case at this point?
No. It was something that we talked about, something that they can look at with the failure to act, rather. Texas law is pretty specific. So here, not acting in time is what they're going to look at, or what it seems like the grand jury looked at. And we're looking not really at the conduct of the person, or it's really what happened here in this instance to the children. What happened? What was the result of the inaction? Those representing these two officers will have to look at this, and then maybe ultimately a jury will have to look, did this failure then result in the injuries? So that's something that they'll have to work through.
Also, we're wondering, what is a likely outcome from these indictments?
It's going to be in the hands of the jury if it gets that far, unless they come to an agreement. But it's not going to be the same people that heard it, but if it's back in the community's hands, judging by a lot of the comments from the community, it seems pretty certain what everybody's mind is made up to be.
Brent, we know the wheels of justice move painfully slow. Is there still time for more people to be charged? Because I know that one of the main conversations, other than the grief and an endless search for closure, is the need for some accountability here. Is there more time for more people to be added to the list of people being indicted in this case?
It would seem so. There's still some charges that are still within the statute of limitations, so that there may well be able to be some more charges out of this.
All right. Attorney Brent De La Paz, thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you.
We talked to Brent right before this newscast this morning. All right, all day we've been telling you about a poll online asking, do you think more officers should be charged in the Robb Elementary School response? Right now, 85% of you say yes. 15% say no. You can still vote by scanning the QR code on the right side of your screen or going to ksat.com/poll.
And joining us in the studio right now are Erica Hernandez, our in-house legal and court expert. And Erica, you just heard our conversation right now. What were your takeaways?
You know, I think now reading the indictment, because I don't know if that indictment came in, because it just came in within the last 30 minutes that we're getting to finally read through it. There's a lot being said in here, but there's still a lot of questions I feel that we still need answers to. I mean, it's 10 counts, and that's for each child that survived. That doesn't, is anything going to be done for the children and the teachers that didn't? And that's a big question that, we hope to hear from the district attorney in Uvalde County soon to answer some of these questions. Another thing I noticed in the indictment when reading it was this is a state jail felony, which is the lowest degree of a felony in Texas. So when we say like first degree, second degree, third degree, state jail felony is right after. So the maximum punishment is up to 2 years or no more than 100 days, 80 days in jail, or up to a $10,000 fine. Now there is 10 counts. Like he says, if it ever does get to a jury, they could stack those counts there'll be a verdict for each count, or they can, as we've seen it many times, run consecutively. Okay. So there's still a lot of questions.
Certainly. So can you tell us more about how long this process could take or play out?
Usually with the state jail felony, those don't usually take longer, in most cases, than a year. But this is not the typical state jail felony. The amount of evidence in this case is enormous that they would have to go through. And that discovery phase, which is called as handing over all of that to the defense, that could take a long time. Usually they do put deadlines, and usually in smaller counties, they don't have dockets like we do here in Bexar County, where there's hundreds in a docket per day. They maybe just have a dozen or so. So they could be, working on this more so. But usually, typically for a state jail felony, it's a year process. But the evidence in this case is going to be really interesting in how fast they can turn that over to the defense.
You kind of touched on this already. We know the indictments are felony charges, but there are different degrees of felony charges.
So when we say first degree murder, that's the worst. That's the worst we see, and those are usually your murder cases. Those are usually from, the life in prison. This is the lowest of the felonies in the state of Texas. This is state jail felony. So with somebody with no priors, on average, those people usually get probation.
What about a possible request for a change of venue in this case?
That will be really interesting. It literally popped up in my head this morning when I was thinking about this case. I could see them asking for it, especially if it goes to trial. You're going to have a very small jury pool to pick from in Uvalde County versus if it moved to a bigger county. And we are the closest county, so it's not far. We've seen big trials get moved here in the past. So it's not saying that's far out. This is a decision that wouldn't be made until they know for sure they're going to trial, and that there would be no plea agreements in this. I could see it also going to a plea because he probably may want to avoid any of this being released, because once it goes to trial, everything is out there. Everything gets released in an open court setting for a jury to see. So that a lot of that evidence will be very hard for a jury to see. So finding somebody in Uvalde County who's been so close, finding someone to be biased would be very hard, I think, in that county to find. So it's a good possibility if it goes to trial that it get moved.
Yeah, that is a very small town. Everybody knows everybody, including people who were involved in this lack of response. All right, the story continues. Erica,
yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for going through that 30-page document really fast.
Really fast.
And we're going to have more as we continue.
Yeah, we're breaking it down right now so we can kind of break it down in a web article as well, so we give you a closer look at what it says. It does name each of the children, where we're not posting the whole thing online because it does name each of the surviving children plus other personal information.
Okay.
But we're going to try our best to really describe what's in this document.
Okay, KSAT's on it. Thank you, Erica.
Thank you.